Welcome to Six Gun Guitars Luthier Lessons video series. In this one we're going to discuss how to tint an oil finish. I had a couple of people ask me questions about how to do that, how to tint it, and also how to do a color behind like a Tru-Oil finish. I did a Tru-Oil finish video before, you can check that out on YouTube, but that just covers using the Tru-Oil finish. It's just a natural finish right over the wood. What I wanted to show you now is how to use a linseed and also a linseed oil based pigment, just a regular artist paint, to achieve a color effect, and then you can come back and hit it with Tru-Oil and you can seal it in. So I'm going to bring you over to the bench and show you a little bit about the colors and how to use them and where to get them, and then we'll actually apply them to the pieces of wood so you can see what they look like. But really all I'm doing is using these Winsor and Newton, and they're actually called Winton oil colors. You get them at Michael's, and I'll show you these a little bit closer. I think they're about $8 or $9 a whack, but I think one tube will last you just about forever. You just need to pick the different colors that you want. But the main thing about that is linseed oil is the carrier for the pigment. Linseed oil is also the main ingredient in your Tru-Oil. So if you're doing a linseed oil based finish or another oil based finish, you know that you're going to get your compatibility down right, because basically this is just ground up pigment mixed with linseed oil. That's what makes it flow, otherwise it would just be powders. So like I said, I'll take you to the bench, show you what these look like, and we'll start applying some colors. These are my three colors, and here's three offcuts from a spruce soundboard. This is the cadmium red, deep hue. And again, this is Winton oil colors. I want to say I got these at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, one of those guys. And then I've got the French Ultramarine, and I just have the lamp black. And again, these are pigments that are carried in pure linseed oil. That's the vehicle. It's just pure linseed oil, and then the pigment's mixed with it. So that way when this comes out, first time it's hard to open. Haven't used the black yet. When this first comes out, it's just a big gobby mess, but linseed oil is what makes it up. So, I've got all three of these guys here. And what I've done before to do some tinting on wood is there's one of two things. You can rub this stuff directly on and cut it back as you rub with your rag. And because linseed oil is the carrier, you can actually add some linseed oil to this, rub it on as well, and when you pull up, you're going to have a lot of that blue pigment on your rag. So you can actually cut it back with linseed oil as well, as long as you get on there right away. Another method of doing this is taking like a small baby food jar or a tiny little glass jar, adding a little Tru-Oil to it, adding a little of this color to it, and go ahead and mixing it up in the jar and then using it. You have to use it all right away though, because it'll skin over and harden up real fast. There's just way too much oxygen and way too much surface area on the Tru-Oil for it to stay liquid. Because Tru-Oil is polymerized, so it's already cross-linked. It's already basically half dried, I guess is the best way of saying it in the quick way when it's in there. So as soon as it gets exposed to any oxygen, it dries up real fast. But the way that I like to do this is I'll just open one of these up and I'll put a little bit on, and I'll just work it in with a rag. And when I'm working it in with the rag, actually I got a little bit all on the other one there, but when I'm working in with the rag, I'm just polishing it around. And this really, I mean, it's just pure pigment and linseed oil, so it looks like paint. But I'm just working it around and working it into other areas of the wood, and I'm trying to keep the wiping down a little bit. So this is kind of quick and dirty, but you can see that we got some pigment applied here. So what I'm going to do now is come back and, using what I've got on the rag, kind of finish up some other areas here. Now if you had to do a blue finish, or you had to do something like that where you need a really deep blue, or you want to blend one color into another, rubbing this on just gives the wood a really, really nice look. And again, you got to even it out. I've got finger marks and thumb marks and all that kinds of stuff over here, and that's because I'm doing this just kind of quickly. If I was doing this on a regular guitar, I would work in some small areas, get them the way I want, and then start working next to it in another area. So we get some blue. There's a couple of spots that don't have as much pigment, and you can just come back and you can add a little bit more pigment to it, which is not very hard. Just come back and squeeze a little bit more on. Go ahead and take your rag and begin wiping it on. And you can kind of control where you want it to go. So right now I'd like to finish up the rest of this wood. So I'm going to kind of control it and flow it over where I want to. And notice I've got a lot on there right now. So what I'll do with my rag is come back and spread it out really good and thin it. So now that I've thinned it pretty good, we start to get the evenness. And you get a pretty nice look out of it. And it really brings out the grain. Now the other colors is going to be the same thing. You know, if you want to try the red out, the red is going to basically do the same thing, so I'm not going to go too nuts with it. And I've got blue all over my hands. I wouldn't be doing this if I had blue all over my hands if this was for real, because the stuff does transfer pretty quickly. In fact, this little dot that you probably noticed earlier, that's some of the blue pigment, and that's all you got to do, and it's all over the place. So here's our red, and again, I want to kind of control where I want it to go by moving it around with the rag. And this is a very, very bright red. And you'll notice as you're using different pieces how much you can cut back without adding linseed oil and how much you can. The red, especially this red, has a lot of coverage to it. So what you want to do is go to a clean part of your rag first. Go ahead and cut it back. And you just cut it back by wiping. I'm really only getting the middle because I'm trying to show all this as I'm doing it. But you can start to see a little bit of the grain coming back out. So I'm going to go to another clean part of my rag, and I'm going to do the same thing. So now I've got a lot more of it cut off here in the middle. You know, and it's a little bit hard for the camera to see, I bet. From my perspective, I can see a lot of the white beyond it. And if you really want to get it thinned out even more, take a little bit of Tru-Oil. I don't want to try to mix too much red with this. Take a little bit of Tru-Oil, which is again is the carrier for this, and go ahead and start mixing that in there. And what that's going to do, and you can kind of see the line kind of forming there, it's going to essentially clean a lot of this pigment off. So the Tru-Oil is going to come back, and now I can move a lot of this stuff. And the best way to do it is to keep on recoating on a different part of the rag and keep moving it. But I picked up a ton of color from that. And come back again and hit it. You know, you've got your red with a little bit of white behind it, and you some blue. You can do, and again, these colors are available in any color in the world. I just picked red and blue because I needed to use the red for something else. I thought the blue looked good, and I figured black might be nice to have around. So I mean, I really didn't pick them for any other reason than that. I have a customer, actually a friend of mine, who wants me to do a blue guitar for him. So I'm experimenting with a little bit of blues, and I did one full soundboard like this to test it out, and it looks phenomenal. So the stuff really, really works. But again, you can cut it with the oil and then apply it that way, or you can apply it and then cut it back with oil. It's completely up to you. But again, just artist colors where the pigment is carried by the same carrier as your finish. Now what I would do with these is just let them dry for a while and come back with some linseed oil and throw some clear coats on there. If you do it with Tru-Oil, the first clear coat is going to solidify on the top. And what that means is it's going to seal in this color. So you can come back and keep building successive coats on top of it, and you're going to lock that color in. You're going to add a little bit of mellowness to it from the Tru-Oil finish itself, and you'll have a really nice looking wild colored top. I wouldn't try this on any wood other than the light colored stuff unless you know how it's going to mix out, but it really does work nice, and it's a very quick, very easy, and very consistent. I mean, this is a deep, deep, really nice color on here. Really nice way to color an instrument, and you know it's going to last forever. If you have any questions on this, you can shoot me an email, and that's sixgunguitars@gmail.com. And that is it for adding pigment to Tru-Oil.